The Grand Conclave Chamber hung in the silent dark of space, a glittering jewel of glass and alloy orbiting the green-blue planet Viridia. Inside, the air hummed with tension. 57 species sat in tiered rings around a central dais, their forms as varied as the stars they came from, some armored in chitin, others wrapped in flowing energy fields, a few little more than hovering orbs of light. At the heart of it all, the human delegation sat quietly, their plain gray uniforms standing out among the shimmering robes and bioluminescent markings of the others. For months, the talks had dragged on. The issue was the Krell Expanse, a stretch of space rich in rare minerals and stable wormholes. Several species claimed it, but humanity had settled there first, building outposts, mining stations, and small colonies. The Galactic Council, led by the tall silver-eyed Velnari and the multi-limbed Mirathi, insisted the region be declared neutral. Humanity, they said, was too young, too volatile to hold such strategic ground. Ambassador Elias Vorn had listened patiently through every session. He was a man in his late 50s with tired eyes and a calm voice that rarely rose above a murmur. He had come to Viridia Prime hoping for fairness, for recognition. Instead, he'd been met with condescension, veiled threats, and demands wrapped in polite language. The council spoke of peace, but their terms felt like surrender. Today was meant to be the final day. The Velnari speaker had just finished outlining a new proposal. Humanity would withdraw all military and civilian presence from the Krell Expanse within 30 cycles. In return, they would receive limited trade rights and a single advisory seat on the Resource Allocation Committee, a seat with no voting power. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Many delegates expected Vorn to protest, to bargain, to ask for more time. That was the human way, they thought. Emotional, reactive, always pushing back. But Vorn did none of those things. He stood slowly, smoothing the front of his tunic. The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient hum of the climate system seemed to pause. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice clear and steady. For 92 standard days we have sat here. We have listened. We have explained. We have offered compromise after compromise, and each time your response has been the same. You are not ready. You do not belong. He paused, letting the words settle. The Mirathi envoy shifted uncomfortably, their eye stalks twitching. Humanity did not ask to join your council, Vorn continued. We were invited, after we defended 3 of your trade lanes from the Void Reavers. We were praised then. Now we are treated as children who must be managed. A few delegates stirred. The truth stung. You speak of peace, Vorn said, his voice dropping slightly. But your peace requires our silence, our retreat, our erasure from the places we built with our own hands. That is not peace. That is control. He took a breath. The entire chamber watched him, some with curiosity, others with growing unease. Therefore, he said, the Terran Union hereby withdraws from all ongoing peace negotiations. We reject the proposed terms. And effective immediately, we suspend all diplomatic and economic ties with the Galactic Council. Gasps echoed through the hall. A Velnari aide stood abruptly, knocking over a data slate. The Mirathi envoy raised 2 of their limbs in alarm. You cannot do this, cried a delegate from the insectoid Keth Collective. It will destabilize the entire sector. Vorn looked at them, not with anger, but with something deeper. Resolve. We are not your subjects, he said simply. We are not your problem to solve, and we will no longer beg for a place at your table. With that, he turned and walked away from the dais. His small team, 3 advisors and a security officer, rose without a word and followed him. No one tried to stop them. No one knew what to do. As the human delegation disappeared through the arched exit, the chamber erupted into chaos. Voices overlapped in dozens of languages. The Velnari speaker called for order, but even their authority seemed shaken. For the first time in centuries, a species had walked away from the council, not in anger, not in war, but in quiet, deliberate refusal. Outside the chamber, Vorn and his team boarded their shuttle without ceremony. The pilot, a woman named Jorah with sharp eyes and steady hands, gave a single nod as they strapped in. No one spoke as the engines fired and the vessel lifted from the docking bay. Back on Viridia Prime, the council scrambled. Emergency alerts flashed across every system. Human trade ships stopped responding. Mining operations in the Krell Expanse went dark. Colonies that had been bustling with activity now broadcast only static. It was as if humanity had pulled a curtain around itself and vanished. Within 6 hours, Earth's official channels released a single message, repeated on every frequency, in every major language. "We are no longer your problem." The words played on loop, cold and final. Council analysts worked through the night trying to understand. Was this a bluff? A prelude to war? Or something else entirely? Scans of human space showed no fleet movements, no weapons buildup. Instead, they saw something stranger. Massive energy signatures near the outer rim of the Sol system near Neptune. Construction? Evacuation? No one could tell. On Viridia Prime, fear began to spread. The humans had always been unpredictable, yes, but they had also been reliable. They honored treaties. They paid debts. They showed up to meetings. Now they had simply left. In a quiet observation lounge high above the planet's surface, Kalen Rowe, a young scout from the amphibious Tarnian species, watched the stars. He had been assigned to monitor human activity, a low-priority task before today. Now his console blinked with unreadable data streams from the edge of human territory. Something was happening out there. Something fast, organized, and utterly silent. He tried to send a routine inquiry to Luna Command. No response. He pinged Mars Central. Static. He even tried an old cultural exchange channel used by human schools. Dead air. Kalen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the recycled air. Humans didn't just disappear. They argued, they built, they explored. They were loud, messy, and full of questions. To go silent like this, it felt wrong. Down in the council chambers, the debates raged on. Some called for sanctions. Others warned of a hidden weapon. A few whispered that humanity had found something out there, something the council wasn't meant to know. But no one had answers. And for the first time in living memory, the Galactic Council felt small. As the shuttle carrying Vorn and his team jumped to hyperspace, heading not for Earth but for a secret rendezvous point beyond Jupiter, the ambassador stared out the viewport at the swirling tunnel of light. He wasn't angry. He wasn't afraid. He was tired. Tired of explaining, tired of being doubted, tired of watching his people treated as guests in a house they helped build. What the council didn't know was that humanity's silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation, and what they were preparing for. Even Vorn wasn't sure, but it was bigger than the Krell expanse, bigger than the council, bigger than war or peace. It was survival. The shuttle emerged from hyperspace near a cluster of dark asteroids. Waiting for them was a fleet, not of warships but of massive, sleek vessels unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They bore no weapons, no flags, no markings, just smooth hulls and open bays filled with supplies, data cores, and thousands of cryopods. Vorn gave a single order: begin Phase 2. And as the human fleet turned away from the inner system, heading toward the cold dark between stars, the last lights on Earth's surface flickered and went out. Weeks passed and the silence from human space grew heavier. The Galactic Council sent probe after probe toward the Sol system, but none returned with clear answers. Earth's cities still stood, but no lights shone in the windows at night. Mars's domes were empty, their airlocks sealed from the inside. Even the massive orbital shipyards around Luna hung dark and still, like skeletons against the black. The council was divided. Some believed humanity had self-destructed. Others whispered of a secret weapon, a doomsday device hidden in the outer system. But the truth was stranger than any theory. Far from Sul, near the icy edge of human-controlled space, things were not silent. They were busy. Hidden behind veils of sensor-scrambling fields and cloaked by the cold shadow of Neptune's largest moon, Triton, humanity was building something enormous. But no one outside their species knew what it was. Back on Viridia Prime, confusion turned to fear. Trade routes stalled. Species that once relied on human-made parts or medical tech now faced shortages. The Marathi, ever cautious, began moving warships toward the borders of former human territory. The Velnari called for calm, but even their voices sounded uncertain. It was during this time that Kalen Rowe, the young Tarnian scout, made a discovery. He had been assigned to patrol the outer rim of the Krell expanse, a region now abandoned by humans. His ship, the Whisper Wing, was small and fast, built for quiet observation, not combat. While scanning a debris field near the ruins of Outpost Theta 9, a human listening post destroyed in a minor skirmish months earlier, he picked up a faint signal. Not a distress call, not a data burst, just a repeating pulse, weak but steady. Curious, Kalen guided his ship closer. The debris field was littered with twisted metal and frozen coolant, but near the center floated a small black box, human design, military grade. It should have been dead. Yet it pulsed on. He brought it aboard. The box opened only after a series of biometric checks failed, proof it had been jettisoned in an emergency. Inside, a data chip glowed faintly. Kalen plugged it into his ship's reader. What played was not a message meant for the Council. It was a personal log, recorded by a human technician named Rivas, voice ragged with exhaustion. "They told us it was just a drill," Rivas said, his voice cracking. "But the evacuation orders came too fast. No families contacted, no explanations, just go." And then the sky went dark. All comms cut, all power rerouted. I stayed behind to keep the beacon running. If anyone finds this, they're not leaving. They're preparing. Something's coming, or maybe something's calling. The recording ended with static. Kalen sat frozen. He tried to send the log to Viridia Prime, but before he could transmit, his ship's sensors screamed. An energy wave, silent and visible, washed over the Whisper Wing. Lights flickered. Systems rebooted. When Kalen checked his weapons and comms, they were gone. Not damaged. Not broken. Permanently disabled, as if erased from the ship's memory. He spun the vessel around, heart pounding. Nothing was there. No ships, no weapons fire. Just empty space. Then, a new message appeared on his screen. Not from any known source, written in plain human script. "Go home. This is not your fight." Kalen didn't hesitate. He turned his ship and fled. When he returned to Viridia Prime, he reported everything. But the Council dismissed his findings. "Human paranoia," said a Marathi envoy. "A trick to draw us into a trap," warned a Velnari elder. Only a few listened, mostly junior analysts and fringe scientists who had long believed humanity held secrets they never shared. Among them was Mira Solis. Mira was human by birth, but she had never set foot on Earth. She was raised on the neutral moon of Ceres 7, adopted by a Zillian botanist after her parents died in a transport accident. She spoke 6 alien languages, understood 7 more, and worked as a low-level data interpreter for the Council's Archives Division. She wasn't important. She wasn't powerful. But she knew human patterns better than anyone. When she heard about Kalen's log, she requested access to the raw data. Her superiors refused, so she did something risky. She hacked into the secure feed from the Whisper Wing's black box. What she found chilled her. The log wasn't just words. Hidden in the audio waveform beneath Rivas's voice was a repeating sequence of numbers. Not random. Not noise, coordinates. She ran them through every star chart in the Council's database. Nothing matched. Then she tried older human maps, pre-Unity era, from before Earth joined the galactic community. There, in a forgotten archive of deep space radio surveys, she found it. A dead star, cold and ancient in a lonely patch of the Andromeda Arm. No planets. No resources. No reason for anyone to go there, except humanity. Mira tried to report her findings, but her supervisor shut her down. "You're seeing ghosts," he said. "Humans are gone. Let them go." That night, Mira made a choice. She copied the coordinates onto a microdrive and left the archives without signing out. She knew she'd be flagged as a deserter, maybe even a traitor, but she also knew something big was happening, and the Council was blind to it. She needed someone who could fly fast, think fast, and ask no questions. She found Dax Torin in a grimy spaceport bar on Viridia's lower ring. He was a salvager, ex-military with a rusted freighter called the Rust Moth, and a reputation for taking jobs no one else would. He'd lost his commission after refusing an order to bomb a civilian freighter during the Krell border clashes. Now he flew alone, scraping by on junk runs and odd deliveries. Mira slid into the seat across from him, placed the microdrive on the table and said, "I need to get to these coordinates before the Marathi do." Dax looked at her, then at the drive. "Why?" "Because if I'm right," she said, "humanity didn't run away. They're answering a call, and if the Council finds out what it is first, they'll try to control it or destroy it." Dax took a long drink, then nodded. "How much fuel you got?" Enough for one jump, she said. Then we better not miss. They left that night, slipping past Viridia's orbital patrols with falsified cargo logs. Behind them, alarms began to blare. The Marathi had noticed Mira's unauthorized data access. They sent 2 interceptors after the rust moth, sleek and deadly. Dax pushed the old freighter hard, weaving through asteroid belts and diving into ion storms to break their trail. For 3 days they ran. On the 4th, deep in uncharted space, they picked up a strange transmission. It was faint, almost musical. A child's voice singing an old Earth nursery rhyme, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star," but backward. Layered beneath it was a low hum like the sound of a machine breathing. Mira recorded it, ran it through her decoder. The rhyme wasn't random. When reversed and aligned with the hum, it formed a countdown, not in hours or days. In stellar cycles, 72 cycles, she whispered. That's less than a month. To what? Dax asked, eyes on the stars ahead. I don't know, Mira admitted, but whatever it is, it starts soon. As they neared the dead star system, sensors began to act strangely. Gravity readings spiked and dropped without cause. Light bent in odd ways. And then on the view screen they saw it. Orbiting the dead star was a ring, not a natural formation, not a station, a perfect smooth ring of black metal wider than a planet, humming with energy that made the rust moth's hull vibrate. It looked ancient yet brand new. Human symbols glowed faintly along its inner rim. Old Earth script, not used in centuries. Before they could react, a Marathi dreadnought dropped out of hyperspace behind them. Weapons charging. You are trespassing on restricted space, boomed a voice over the comms. Surrender the data, or be destroyed, Dax cursed. Mira gripped the edge of her seat. They were outgunned, outmatched. But then the ring pulsed. A wave of silent force rolled outward. Not explosive, not violent. It passed through the Marathi ship like a sigh. Instantly, every weapon, every engine, every light on the dreadnought went dark. The ship hung in space, helpless. The same wave touched the rust moth. The lights dimmed, then returned. Systems flickered but held. From the ring's center, a single ship emerged. Sleek, silver, shaped like a seed. No weapons, no markings. Just smooth lines and open bays filled with strange pods. A voice came over all channels, calm, female, human. This is Captain Leon Morrow of the Terran seed ship Horizon. We are not your enemy. We are not staying. We are going where we were called. She paused. Tell the galaxy. We tried to warn you. Then the seed ship moved toward the ring. The center of the ring shimmered like water. The ship passed through and vanished. The ring itself began to collapse, folding inward like a closing eye. Within minutes it was gone, leaving only empty space and a single drifting data buoy. Dax reached out and grabbed the buoy. On it was a final message, simple and clear. They are awake. Mira stared at the words, her blood running cold. Who's awake? But no one answered. The stars around them felt different now, watchful, waiting. And far away, in the cold dark between galaxies, something ancient stirred. The data buoy drifted in the silent void where the ring had been. Dax pulled it into the rust moth's cargo bay with careful movements, his hands steady despite the tremor in his chest. Mira stood beside him, eyes locked on the small metal sphere. It pulsed once with a soft blue light, then went still. Inside the ship's cramped lab, they opened it. No trap, no weapon, just a crystal memory core warm to the touch. When Mira slotted it into their reader, images filled the screen, not of stars or ships, but of Earth. Not the Earth of today, but ancient Earth. Deserts, oceans, jungles, and among them, strange stone structures half buried, covered in symbols that matched those on the ring. Then came voices, not human, older, deeper, speaking in a language that made the ship's metal groan in sympathy. They're not just calling humanity. Mira whispered. They're calling everyone, Dax frowned. Who are they? Before she could answer, alarms blared. The Marathi dreadnought, still powerless but not blind, had sent a distress pulse. Other ships were coming. Fast. We can't stay, Dax said, already moving toward the cockpit. We need to run. But Mira grabbed his arm. Not yet. Look at this. She pointed to a hidden layer in the data. Buried beneath star maps and genetic codes was a nursery rhyme. The same one they'd heard before, but now in its original form. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Only this time, each word was paired with a star coordinate. When plotted together, they formed a shape, a spiral leading inward toward the edge of the solar system. The Oort cloud, Mira breathed. They left something there. Dax didn't argue. He trusted her now. He fired up the engines and the rust moth leapt into hyperspace just as 3 Velnari cruisers dropped out of warp behind them. For days, they traveled in silence, jumping from one dead zone to another, avoiding known patrol routes. Mira studied the data endlessly. She found more clues, fragments of old human myths, children's songs, even lullabies, all pointing to the same place. It wasn't random. It was a map, hidden in plain sight, passed down through generations without anyone realizing its true meaning. Humanity didn't just evolve on Earth, she said one night, her voice low. We were planted there, like seeds, and now the gardeners are returning. Dax didn't laugh. He'd seen too much to doubt her. When they finally neared the outer edge of the Sol system, sensors picked up something strange. Not a ship, not a station. A signal, steady, repeating, buried under layers of cosmic noise. It matched the rhythm of the nursery rhyme. They followed it deep into the Oort cloud, a sea of icy rocks and frozen dust circling the sun like a ghostly shell. Here time moved slower, light was faint, and nothing should be alive. Yet in the center of a cluster of comets they found it, a structure, smooth, black, shaped like a teardrop 1/2 kilometer long. No doors, no windows, just a surface that shimmered when the rust moth got close. It's not human, Dax said, scanning it. But it's reacting to us. Mira checked the ship's logs. It's reacting to human DNA. The nursery rhyme. It's a key. She sent a simple audio file, the original lullaby, on an open frequency. The structure pulsed. A seam appeared along its side, opening like a flower in slow motion. Inside, the air was warm. Gravity felt normal. Walls glowed with soft light. And in the center of the chamber floated a sphere of liquid metal, swirling with images, galaxies forming, stars dying, civilizations rising and falling. As Mira stepped forward, the sphere showed something new, Earth millions of years ago. A ship, not human, landing in a green valley. Beings stepping out, planting something in the soil, watching, waiting. Then a new image, the same beings now gone. Their cities in ruins, their signal fading. But one last message sent into the void. When the children sing the old song, we will return. Mira understood. Humanity wasn't alone. They were part of a cycle, a test, a promise. But before she could record it all, the sphere changed again. It showed the future. Not one future, many. In some, the galaxy united, built new rings, answered the call. In others, species turned on each other, fought over the truth, destroyed themselves before they could grow. And in one, a shadow moved between the stars. Something that had been sleeping. Something that did not want the cycle to continue. The warning, Mira said, her voice shaking. Humanity didn't leave because they were scared of the Council. They left because they knew this was coming. Suddenly, the ship's alarm screamed. Outside, a Velnari scout vessel appeared, weapons hot. They'd tracked the rust moth through a hidden relay. You are ordered to surrender the artifact, came the voice over comms. It belongs to the Council, Dax cursed. They don't understand. This isn't a weapon. It's a library, but the Velnari didn't care. They fired a warning shot that rocked the rust moth. Mira made a split-second decision. She triggered the archive's self-preserve protocol. The sphere dissolved into light and every piece of data flooded into the rust moth's systems. Then the structure collapsed, folding in on itself until nothing remained but dust. Go, Mira yelled. Dax pushed the engines to their limit. They escaped just as the Velnari opened fire. But the damage was done. The Council now knew something was hidden in the Oort cloud, and they would send more ships, bigger ones. Back in deep space, Mira sorted through the data. She found one final file, a star chart, not of the Milky Way, but of a place far beyond. And at its center was a symbol, an eye-opening. They're not just returning, she told Dax, they're waking up everything. As if on cue, long-range sensors blinked. Not one signal, thousands, faint at first, then stronger, coming from every direction. Dormant objects, hidden for eons, were activating. Some near-dead stars, some inside gas giants, some buried in asteroids. Each one pulsed with the same rhythm as the nursery rhyme. Dax stared at the screen, his face pale. The whole galaxy is a seedbed, Mira nodded. And humanity was just the first to bloom. They knew they couldn't go back to Viridia Prime. The Council would lock them away, dissect the data, use it as a weapon. They had to warn others, the small species, the quiet ones, the ones who still believed in wonder. So they changed course. Not toward safety. Toward the edge of known space where the first new signal had appeared. A place the old archive called the Threshold. As the rust moth jumped into the unknown, Mira played the lullaby one more time. Outside, the stars seemed to lean in, listening. And far away in the dark between galaxies, something ancient opened its eyes and smiled. The rust moth dropped out of hyperspace into a star system that should not exist. According to every known chart, this patch of space was empty, just cold dust and dead light. But before them hung a ring of fire, not made of flame but of shifting energy that bent space like glass over water. At its center pulsed a black hole, ancient and quiet, wrapped in a halo of glowing debris. Mira stared at the sight, her breath fogging the cockpit glass. "This is it," she whispered. The threshold. Dax kept his hands on the controls, eyes scanning for threats. "It's bigger than the last one. Much bigger." This ring wasn't built, it was grown. Its surface rippled like living metal, covered in patterns that shifted when you looked away. And unlike the ring near the dead star, this one was awake, active, waiting. They had followed the strongest of the new signals, the one that matched the archive's final coordinates. Along the way, they'd passed dozens of other awakenings, silent monoliths rising from ocean worlds, crystalline towers unfolding on frozen moons, spheres of light blooming in asteroid fields. Each one hummed with the same rhythm as the lullaby. Each one pointed here. As they drifted closer, a voice spoke, not over comms, but inside their minds, soft, calm, human, but layered with something older. Only those who understand the song may pass. Mira didn't hesitate. She played the full lullaby, the original Earth version, clear and gentle. The ring responded instantly. A path opened in the energy field, a tunnel of calm space leading straight to the black hole's edge. Before they could enter, sensors blared. A Velnari dreadnought emerged from hyperspace behind them, flanked by 2 Mirathi interceptors. They'd been tracking the signal spikes across the galaxy. Now they'd found the source. "You will not enter," boomed the Velnari commander. "This power belongs to the Council," Dax gritted his teeth. "They still think it's about power." Mira knew arguing was useless. She sent a single command to the Rust Moth systems. "Broadcast the lullaby on all frequencies. Full strength." The moment the song filled space, the ring reacted. A wave of silent force rolled outward, not violent, not destructive, but absolute. The Velnari ship's weapons froze. Its engines died. Its shields collapsed like paper in rain. The same happened to the Mirathi vessels. They hung in space helpless as if time itself had paused around them. But the rust moth sailed through untouched. Inside the tunnel, reality felt thin. Stars stretched into lines. Time slowed. Mira saw flashes. Earth's first sunrise, the first human stepping onto Mars, a child laughing under alien skies. Memories not hers, yet familiar. Then they reached the center. Floating before the black hole's event horizon was a seed ship. Sleek, silver, shaped like a falling leaf. Human, but changed. Its hull shimmered with the same living metal as the ring. And standing on its open deck was a woman in a simple flight suit. Captain Leanne Morrow. She didn't speak over comms. She simply raised a hand and the rust moth drifted gently to her ship's side. Mira and Dax stepped out into the void. There was no air, yet they could breathe. No gravity, yet they stood firm. The space around them obeyed a different set of rules. "You found the archive," Leanne said. Her voice was tired, but kind. "That means you understand." "Understand what?" Dax asked. "That we were never alone," Mira answered for her. "And we were never meant to stay." Leanne nodded. "The builders, the ones who seeded life across the galaxy, they left a test. Not of strength. Not of technology. Of unity, of listening. Most species never hear the song. They're too loud, too afraid. But humanity, we remembered, even when we forgot why." She turned and gestured toward the black hole. "This isn't an end. It's a door. On the other side is where the builders went, and where they've been calling us to join them." Dax frowned. "You're leaving the galaxy?" "We already left," Leanne said softly. What you saw, the darkened cities, the silent fleets, that was just the shell. The real exodus began weeks ago. Millions are already through. Billions more will follow. Mira's heart ached. What about the rest of us?
The other species?
Lean looked at her with deep sadness. They have a choice, listen, or be left behind. As if on cue, the ring behind them pulsed again. Not just one ring now, dozens, hundreds. Across the galaxy, every awakened structure flared with light. New rings formed in empty space. Gates opened where none had been before. From each gate, seed ships emerged, not just human, but shaped like the forms of other species. A Velnari vessel, smooth and tall. A Mirathi craft, multi-limbed and graceful. Even small ships bearing the symbols of forgotten races. They're being invited too, Mira realized. Yes, Leon said, but only if they come in peace. Only if they sing the song. Back at the Velnari dreadnought, the commander watched in stunned silence as his ship's systems slowly returned. He saw the rings. He saw the ships. He heard the lullaby echoing in his mind, translated into his own language by some ancient part of his brain. For the first time, he understood. This wasn't invasion. It was graduation. He lowered his weapons. One by one, the other council ships did the same. On the seed ship, Leon turned to Mira and Dax. You don't have to go with us. You can stay. Warn the others. Help them here. Mira looked at Dax. He gave a small nod. We'll stay, she said. Leon smiled. Then carry the song. She handed Mira a small crystal, warm, humming with the same rhythm as the lullaby. This will help you open the gates when the time is right. Then she stepped back onto her ship. The seed ship turned toward the black hole. As it crossed the event horizon, it didn't vanish. It unfolded, stretching into light, becoming part of the ring itself. One by one, the other seed ships followed. Human, Velnari, Mirathi, and more. Each one passed through, each one adding to the ring's glow. When the last ship disappeared, the ring began to fade. Not collapse, fade, like a memory returning to sleep. Mira and Dax stood on the rust moth's hull, watching the stars return to normal. But they weren't the same stars anymore. The sky felt aware. As they turned to leave, a final message echoed in their minds, not from Leon, but from something far older. The garden grows. Back on Viridia Prime, chaos had turned to quiet. The council had received the lullaby broadcast. Every species heard it in their own tongue, in their own heart. Some wept, some raged, some simply sat in silence, remembering stories their ancestors told. The Velnari speaker stood before the empty human seats and said, "We were wrong." They were not the threat. They were the first to wake up. Mira and Dax returned not as fugitives, but as messengers. They showed the council the archive's truth. Not all believed, but enough did. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. Old wars paused. Trade routes reopened, not for profit, but for sharing. Species began teaching each other their oldest songs, searching for the hidden map in their own pasts, and far beyond the Milky Way, in a place where time had no name, humanity walked among the builders not as children, but as equals. But the story wasn't over. Because as the rings faded, something else stirred. In the deepest void, where even the builders feared to look, a shadow watched. It had slept through the planting. It had ignored the song, but now it was hungry, and it did not like the garden. The galaxy held its breath. For the first time in centuries, there was no war. No border disputes. No secret weapons. The council still met on Viridia Prime, but the tone had changed. Voices were quieter. Questions were kinder. Species that once eyed each other with suspicion now shared star charts, old songs, and stories of their earliest myths. Everyone was searching for the hidden map, the one that might lead them to their own threshold. Mira and Dax became unlikely guides. They traveled from world to world, playing the lullaby, showing the crystal Leon had given them. On some planets, nothing happened. On others, ancient stones glowed, buried ruins hummed, and dormant gates flickered to life. Each awakening was different, shaped by the species that found it. A Keth hive mind activated a hive gate made of living crystal. A nomadic gas bag species from the Jovian belts opened a sky portal woven from storm clouds. The galaxy was waking up, one song at a time. But not everyone welcomed the change. Deep in the outer spiral, a Marathi splinter group called the Iron Chorus refused to believe. They claimed the lullaby was a human trick, a way to lure the galaxy into a trap. They began destroying awakened sites, bombing ruins, silencing singers. Their leader, a warlord named Vex Tor, declared, "We will not be led like cattle into the dark." His actions sparked fear. Old instincts returned. Some species pulled back, sealed their borders, silenced their children's songs. Mira and Dax tried to reason with them. They flew to the Iron Chorus stronghold near the shattered moon of Krell 7. But Vex Tor met them with weapons drawn. "You bring soft dreams," he hissed, his many eyes burning. "But the universe is hard. Only strength survives." Before they could speak, the ground shook. Not from bombs. From below, the moon's surface cracked open. From the fissure rose a structure, black, smooth, covered in shifting symbols. It pulsed with the lullaby's rhythm. The Iron Chorus soldiers fired on it. Their weapons melted in their hands. Vex Tor screamed in rage, then fell silent as the structure projected a vision into his mind. He saw his ancestors long ago singing the same song under twin suns. He saw them choose fear over wonder. He saw their world die, not from war, but from silence. When the vision ended, Vex Tor dropped to his knees. Tears streamed down his armored face. "We forgot," he whispered. "We forgot how to listen." That day, the Iron Chorus laid down their arms. They became the first to rebuild what they had broken. Hope spread. Then the stars began to change. It started with the outer colonies. Sensors picked up strange distortions, light bending the wrong way, gravity pulling where nothing was. At first, scientists thought it was a side effect of the awakenings. But Mira knew better. She remembered the archive's final warning. The garden grows, but the shadow watches. One night, while scanning the void beyond Andromeda, Dax saw it. A patch of space where no light returned. Not a black hole. Not a cloud. A true absence. And it was growing. He called Mira. Together they played the lullaby toward it. Normally the song brought light, life, response. This time it was swallowed. Gone. As if something had eaten the sound. "They're coming," Mira said, her voice tight. "Who?" Dax asked. "The ones the builders feared. The council didn't believe them at first." "You speak of ghosts," said a Velnari elder. But then the first world fell silent. It was a small planet home to a gentle amphibious species. They had just opened their gate, a beautiful arch of coral and light. Thousands gathered to sing. Then without warning, the gate collapsed. The sky darkened. All signals stopped. When a rescue ship arrived, the planet was empty. Not destroyed, not burned, just empty, as if every living thing had been unmade. Panic returned. Mira and Dax raced to the site. In the ruins of the coral gate, they found a single mark, a symbol not from the builders, but something older, jagged, hungry. It pulsed with cold. They don't want the garden to grow, Mira realized. They feed on silence. The truth hit her like ice water. The builders didn't just leave, they fled. And now the thing they fled was returning, drawn by the song, by the light, by the noise of awakening life. The council finally listened. Emergency meetings turned into war councils. But this was not a war of ships and guns. You couldn't fight silence with noise. You couldn't kill a shadow with light. "What do we do?" asked the Velnari speaker, her voice trembling. Mira looked at Dax. He nodded. "We don't fight it," she said. "We drown it," she explained the plan. Every awakened gate, every species that had heard the song, they would all sing together. Not one lullaby. Millions. Billions. A chorus so loud, so full of life that the shadow could not swallow it all. It would be risky. If they failed, the silence would spread faster. But if they succeeded, the shadow might be pushed back. Or even destroyed. The council agreed. On a single cycle chosen by the oldest star clocks, the galaxy sang. From Earth's empty cities, hidden speakers played the lullaby. From Velnari spires, crystal choirs echoed it. Mirathi hives vibrated with harmonic tones. Even the gas bag nomads wove the song into their storms. Every species, every world added their voice. Mira and Dax stood on the rust moth, parked near the original threshold ring, now dim but still present. They played their crystal, joining the chorus. At first nothing happened. Then the shadow reacted. It surged forward, a wave of pure nothingness swallowing stars as it came. Planets went dark. Gates flickered out. The song began to fade in its path, but the galaxy did not stop. More voices joined. Species that had never awakened found the song in their bones, in old prayers, in wind through trees, in the beat of their own hearts. The chorus grew louder, richer, deeper. The shadow slowed. It writhed as if in pain. Light returned to the edges of its reach. Stars blinked back on. Gates flared with renewed power. Then, with a sound like a sigh across a million worlds, the shadow broke apart. Not destroyed, scattered, forced back into the deepest voids where it would sleep again, for now. Silence returned, but not the empty kind. This silence was full of breath, full of waiting. In the days that followed, no one celebrated. They knew the victory was fragile. The shadow would return. But next time, the galaxy would be ready. Mira and Dax received a final message, not through comms, but in a dream. Leonmaro stood on a shore of silver sand under a sky filled with new constellations. "You did well," she said. "The garden lives." Then she turned and walked into the light. Back on Viridia Prime, the Council changed its name. No longer the Galactic Council, but the Chorus of Worlds. Their first act was to build a new gate, not for leaving, but for listening. At its center, they placed Mira's crystal. Mira and Dax never settled down. They kept flying, visiting worlds, teaching the song to those who had forgotten. They were no longer fugitives or messengers. They were gardeners. And far beyond the edge of everything, in a place where time had no meaning, humanity walked with the builders, tending to new seeds, new songs, new stars. But they left a promise behind, whispered on every wind, sung in every cradle. "We'll return when you're ready." The stars listened, and for the first time in forever they answered.